1483, Matteo Maria Boiardo first published one of the most famous poems of the Italian Renaissance, the Orlando Innamorato, Orlando in Love, or to translate the title more poetically, for a translation such as this one is a tricky proposition, The Infatuation of Count Orlando. Even today we have still heard of Charlemagne as we have heard of King Arthur. Just as Sir Lancelot was Arthur's greatest knight, Orlando, according to legends going back to the time of the Crusades, was Charlemagne's greatest warrior. It was Boiardo who first conceived the fine humor of telling a story about the time the celibate Christian warrior Orlando, like Lancelot, fell in love. Orlando's infatuation was for Angelica. The poem itself is a vast tapestry of characters, lyrical flights, interlaced stories, and moments like this one. This passage comes from the end of Canto 18 of Book 1 of the Orlando Innamorato. Agricane, who will fight Orlando in this section of about 200 lines, is the king of Tartary, which is roughly equivalent to the modern Soviet Union. In this passage, he recognizes Orlando for the first time. I'll go to the point where I say this song is over, which is the end of the canto. The story, of course, continues for another 30,000 or so lines after this. Then Agricane and Orlando once more resume their vicious duel, more terrible than any scene. Each hacks the other's armor, and King Agricane can't defend his army, which he sees destroyed, because the Count keeps him employed. He must stay face to face with him. He had this surreptitious thought. He'd lure away that brawny Count and murder him upon some path. Then quickly he'd rejoin the battle, and it would seem an easy thing to chase those timid troops alone. He valued as a worthless button all of them, and King Gallifrone. His purpose set, he breaks away and gallops hard across the plain. The Count, who does not guess his trick, thinks Agricane flees from fear and follows him without suspicion until both reach a shadowed forest. Right in the midst of this flat woodland grew a lush meadow round a fountain. Agricane halted by this fount, dismounted there to rest, and did not take his helmet off his head, drop his shield, or remove his armor, but waited. Soon the Count arrived, and when he saw him standing by the spring, he told him, "You ran, knight. That shows how strong you are, how daring. How can you bear the great disgrace of fleeing from a single night? Perhaps you thought you could escape from death. Now look, you were mistaken. To die with honor, one must die. And if you cling to this sad life, you may, it happens easily, lose life and honor at one time." King Agricane mounted, and then, in a cool voice, he responded, "You surely are the boldest knight I've ever met in all my life, and you shall live because of the ability and courtesy you showed me in the field today when I was forced to help my army. I want to let you live, provided you stay away and don't annoy me. This flight of mine was counterfeited. Otherwise, by now, you would be dead. If you elect to fight instead, you'll never leave this field alive, but let the sun and heaven see that killing you displeases me." The Count responded graciously, since he felt sympathy for him. He said, "As much as you are bold, so much I grieve to tell the truth that you are not a Christian. When you die, you'll go among the damned. To save your body and your soul, be baptized, and I'll let you go." Agricane watched his face and said, "If you're a Christian, you're Orlando. I would prefer to fight you than to be the king of paradise. But let me give you some advice. Don't talk about the works of gods to me, because you'll preach in vain. Let each defend his sword in hand. No more words. He draws out Tronquera and daringly confronts Orlando. Their fierce contention now begins with saber cuts and bitter point thrusts. Each was a lamp of prowess, and they fought together, the book says, from noon until the dark of night, bold and then bolder in hard fight. But when the sun had passed the mountains and stars began to light the heavens, the Count addressed King Agricane. What now? He asked. The day is gone. That sovereign replied at once, we'll rest here in the field tonight, and then tomorrow at first light, together we'll resume our fight. On this the two were in accord. Each tied his horse where he preferred, and they lay on the verdant grass together in each other's sight, like two men bound by ancient peace. The Count is by the fountain side, and Agricane lies near the woods under the cover of a pine. They talked together for a time of worthy and chivalric matters. The Count, who watched the sky, then said, what we see is the lovely work that was produced by heaven's monarch. The silver moon, the golden stars, the shining sun, the light of day, God made them for the human race. I gather, Agricane said, you want to argue over faith. I have no skill in any science. I didn't want to learn when young. I broke my teacher's head as payment. They couldn't find another one to show me books or how to write. They all were too afraid of me. And so I spent my early years in riding, games of arms, and hunts. I don't think that a nobleman should spend the whole day reading books. He should develop physical force and the speed a knight requires. Learning is fine for priests and scribes. I know what I have need to know. Orlando answered, I agree, a man's first honors are in arms, but learning does not lessen men, it adds, like flowers in a field. Not to acknowledge our Creator makes you an ox, a stone, a log. Unschooled, you cannot well conceive the heights of holy majesty. It's impolite, said Agricane, to argue. You have the advantage. I told you what my nature is, and I know you're well-read and wise. I won't respond if you go on. If you prefer to sleep, then sleep. But if you want to talk to me, then talk of either war or love. Upon your honor as a knight, I'm asking you to tell the truth. If you are that Orlando who is so well known throughout the world, then tell me why you've traveled here and if you've been Innamorato. Any knight who despises love lives heartless. He just looks alive. I'm the Orlando, said the Count, who killed Almonte and Troiano. Love made me wander from my home and travel to this foreign land, and since I'm speaking openly, I'll tell you that my heart's held by King Galafrone's daughter. She lives in the keep at Agricane. You fight her father in mad war. You take his country and his castles. I have been brought this far by love because that damsel needs my aid. Many times I've been in the saddle for honor or religious faith, but now I fight to win this fair maiden, and I want nothing more. When Agricane understood this was Orlando, and he loved Angelica, he raged past measure, but he showed nothing in the dark. He cried, sighed like a crazy fool. His spirit, heart, and soul flamed, and jealousy beat his heart so he's neither alive nor dead from grief. He told the Count, prepare your mind, because as soon as daylight shines, the two of us will have to fight till only one remains alive. Now, let me ask you just one thing before we start our final duel. The maiden whom your heart desires, abandon her. Let her be mine. While I'm alive, I can't endure another man in love with her. Tomorrow, one of us must be shorn of his spirit and the lady. No one will know, except this stream, this forest that encircles us, that you renounced her in this place and for this time. Is that too much? my oaths, Orlando told the king. As many as I've made, I've kept. But if I promised what you ask, if I swore I'd renege on it, my limbs could be cleaved, my eyes lifted out of my head, and I could live without a soul, without a heart, but not without Angelica. King Agricane burned past belief, unable to endure such speech. And in the midst of that dark night, he seized Boiardo and he mounted, his look defiant, confident, and screamed a challenge at the count, saying, "You must renounce the damsel, either forego or face a battle." The count, by then, was in his saddle, since when the mighty king had moved, he feared the pagan's treachery and quickly clambered on his steed. That done, he answered valiantly, "I'll never, ever give her up. What's more, I would not if I could, so find another way to her." Like a great storm that stirs the sea, the duel begins. The cavaliers in black night on a grassy field prod their good chargers with their spurs. They see each other by the moon as they exchange fierce, ruthless strokes. They are both powerful and bold. I'll say no more. This song is over.